Across America and all over the world, unfortunately children are at high risk of being abducted or just flat out disappearing. In the US alone, roughly 2,300 children are reported missing daily. So what happens to a small town community when an entire classroom of children suddenly up and vanish? Hi, I'm Sarah, and today we're going to break down the film Weapons, giving you all the juicy spoiler details. But before we begin though, please give us a like, share and subscribe to the channel as we do weekly reviews and breakdowns, as well as tons of other film related content for you to enjoy. Alright, it's time to settle in. This mystery is about to be solved. This film opens with some narration provided by a little girl from another class, whose friend was part of the group that went missing. Upon rewatch, there are actual several clues to big twist ending here that I didn't pick up on the first go round. One of the biggest clues is when the title of the film flashes on the screen, a triangle is drawn inside of the O. For those of you familiar with symbology, you'll kind of pick up on what that's meant to mean. Anyway, so through the narration, we are introduced to Maybrook Elementary, and to one of our main characters, a new teacher at the school named Justine Candy, played by the Silver Surfer herself, Julia Garner. She comes off pretty gentle, very caring and generally interested in helping children. However, one Wednesday when she came to her classroom, 17 out of the 18 students just weren't there. That's because the night before, at 2:17 AM, they all just up and ran out of their houses and disappeared into the darkness, all except for Alex Lilly. Of course, the parents were all distressed from this, and the police were able to put together that the kids all left at the exact same time, because many of the houses had alarms that were tripped when the kids left for their houses. Some were captured on security cameras and doorbell cams, but all it showed was them running gleefully off into the darkness, with their arms outstretched to either side like they were pretending to be an airplane. The police thoroughly questioned Alex, thinking it could have been some massive prank or a collective decision to run away, or anything like that, but Alex was adamant that he didn't know anything about it. They then proceeded to excessively question Miss Candy, but she too didn't know anything about it. The school was closed for a month as the police and the FBI investigated, but ultimately they came up with nothing. When it came time to reopen the school, so that the other students could continue with their school year, the school held a big PTA-style meeting, entering the Justine chapter of the film. It's here where we meet Archer Graff, played by an intense Josh Brolin. He's understandably upset, reaching for anything that could explain why 17 kids went missing from one classroom, and only that classroom. He cannot shake his belief that Justine was somehow involved. She tries to address the crowd, offering her sympathies, but they immediately begin attacking her, yelling for her to give the children back. And so Principal Andrew, played by the very talented Benedict Wong, ushers her off stage and helps her get to her car, while keeping the increasingly hostile crowd away from her. Shaky and overwhelmed by emotion, she drives home, but not before stopping at the liquor store to pick up some very big bottles of vodka. She's constantly checking around her, looking at the faces of the people she passes in fear of one of them possibly being one of the upset parents, worrying someone might attack her. She even gets a threatening phone call from an anonymous number warning her to watch her back. She makes it home okay and heads straight for the kitchen to crack open a bottle and pour herself a big glass. As she slips further and further into a more inebriated state, she's interrupted twice by someone outside the house. First ringing her doorbell, and then just disappearing when she goes to check. And secondly with a loud aggressive knock, which she starts screaming out the door for whomever it is to reveal themselves. Sick of this shit, she grabs some pepper spray to deal with it and walks outside with a fierce determination. But there's no one there. Just a quiet late night suburban street with the sound of crickets chirping away. Well, someone certainly was, because when she turns back and sees a car, someone painted the word witch in big bright red letters on the side of her car. The next morning, Mr. Andrew informs her that she's being put on paid leave, given the current circumstances. and with how the parents have reacted to her, and that although she has been cleared by the police, the school board wishes to avoid any kind of lawsuit. We find out a little bit more about Justine's past here, that she's been in trouble a few times before for minor things, involving students such as giving a kid a hug or driving home a student who missed the bus, which in a normal world would seem like a kind gesture, but sadly in reality, these are often red flags for possible predators, and again, due to her current circumstances, seem to only bolster the suspicions of the various parents. Mr. Andrew, on the other hand, doesn't believe she had anything to do with the missing kids. While he may not have known Justine for super long time, he's seen her in action and knows that she cares about these kids. When Justine remarks that she'd at least like to speak to Alex to see how he's doing, once again Mr. Andrew tells her it would not be a good idea, that even though she cares a lot, the kid is most likely traumatised from all the things that are going on, that he needs to just go back to a normal routine and be left alone, especially by her. Justine breaks down in her car and then heads to the police station to file a report about the graffiti on it. Afterwards, she heads to a local bar, and here we see a completely different side of her. Enter Officer Paul Morgan, who meets up with her and the two exchange a kind of awkward hug. She's definitely a few drinks in, and there's definitely some history between them, even if it seems things are currently on the way out. She tries to order him a drink, but he seems like he's adamant on staying sober tonight. And then the real Justine comes out, well, the frustrated side anyway, as that smile fades and she kind of lets it all out, about how the situation is unfair, everyone is treating her like a villain, and that she's just as upset as the parents are, and her grief should matter too. Paul gives her some advice, not necessarily tough love, but because he knows her so well, makes her face some truths and to stop overthinking things. I tell you, me too, girl. Just like so many other people out there, I have a tendency to overthink, keeping things inside and turning them over and over again. And then that strong desire to do anything to fix something that isn't even as bad of whatever as you might believe, which only ends up making things 10 times worse in reality. Anyways, this leads to some flirting, and then Paul caves to having a drink with her, and well, eventually, Paul raiding her candy dish, aka they got freaky together. The next morning they exchange some awkward goodbyes, as not only is he super hungover, but he also feels guilty, because it appears that he is with someone currently, even though he claims it is fizzling out. She then goes on to do something infuriatingly dumb, and drives to the school to follow Alex home. I was screaming when I saw her do this. Yep. After he goes inside his house, she approaches the front door and rings a bell, but no one answers. The windows are all covered with newspaper, as if to block out any onlookers, which in my mind at the time made sense because of the media frenzy around what happened. The press probably swarmed the place trying to get any and all footage of the family and the lone boy. However, there are no press outside. Hell, I don't even see any neighbours. The street is pretty much empty except for a few sprinklers going off in some yards. So you'd think someone would have opened the windows again. Well, to satiate her curiosity, Justine heads around the side of the house and spots a window where a portion of the newspaper has kind of peeled off, allowing her to peer inside. At first, all she sees is pretty much darkness, until she scans her eyes over to the living room and gets a shock, sending her jumping backwards. There are two adults, presumably Alex's parents, sitting completely still. I mean, not moving a single muscle, just sitting there, staring at the wall. Even when she jumps back, initially she knocks over a snow shovel and some aluminum garbage cans, causing quite a bunch of noise. And when she looks through the gap again, they haven't moved at all. She hops back in her car and calls up Mr. Andrew, who reams her out about going there after specifically telling her not to. Frustrated, she heads to the liquor store, and as she begins to make her way through the aisles back towards the vodka, a tall woman in a red dress begins following her, speed walking after her in fact, looking like she's ready for a fight. As soon as Justine reaches her target, the woman comes up behind her and grabs her by the hair, slamming her into the shelf and throwing her onto the ground. Oh shit. She then grabs a bottle of something, ready to smash it over Justine's head as she begins screaming about how Justine fucked her man and ruined their relationship. Oh, and this is Paul's significant other. Karma is here. Well, some liquor store employees grab up the women to stop her from tearing the place up, and Justine gets the hell out of there. We cut to later that night, and Justine is sloshed, stumbling to her bed, and she slips into sleep. She begins having a dream about being back at school and entering her classroom. This time the desks all have students in them, but they're all face down, as if they're sleeping. All except Alex, who sits up with some strange looking clown makeup on his face and eyes as wide as moons, smiles at her all crazy. Someone in my theatre spoke out, "Oh shit, James Gunn, Joker Origins," and I had a little chuckle. Well, this snaps Justine awake, and she has this eerie sense someone is in the house with her. Now, sidestepping a moment, when I go to bed, even if I'm in the house on my own, I close my bedroom door. Or at least leave it open only a smidge enough for my pet to get in and out. But no, Justine leaves it wide open with a view straight to her front door. Which I don't know, maybe it's just me, but feels incredibly unsafe. If someone broke in, they could just come straight at you. No chance to hide, just big old note from me. Anyway, so Justine looks out her bedroom towards the front door, but sees nothing. And so she lays back, and what the actual fuck? There is a deranged woman on the ceiling above her. Kind of like a crab crawling, like Annie did in Hereditary. But this one's got like bright red hair and clown makeup. Holy shit, is this a Pennywise sequel? The film then cuts to the next morning, and Justine once again follows Alex. This time stopping him along the way and begins talking to him. He dismisses her, and when she tries to explain that she's just concerned about him, he yells at her to stop following him. He runs inside the house, and Justine marches over, banging on that door. But no answer. So what does she do? She stakes it out, of course. Jesus, with a big gulp in hand, she refills it with another bottle of liquor and settles in. But eventually night falls, and she passes out in the car. The door of the house suddenly opens, and I mean, although it is completely quiet, it opens so quick it's almost supernatural. It's hard to fully explain, and out of the house comes Mrs. Lily, Alex's mom. Her hair is a bit frazzled, like a perm gone wrong, and she has this strange unblinking expression on her face, and is holding a pair of extremely large scissors in one hand. She then proceeds to dance her way over to Justine's car, like a marionette almost, skipping and twitching and whatnot, before stopping beside the driver's side door and staring at her. She then goes around and we hear the car door open. Oh fuck. The scissors slide into view, Justine's goose is cooked. Or wait a minute, the scissors then open and they cut off a strand of curls, when they get scooped up by another hand. I was also screaming, why have you left your car doors open? Like, what the fuck? She's not very savvy in being safe. The film then switches perspectives. We are now in the Archer chapter. He's been sleeping in his missing son's bed ever since he's gone missing, and he is consumed with finding him. Understandable. He's studying the doorbell cam footage over and over and over again. He heads to work, which is on a construction site building a new house, when he finds out the paint for the door arrived, but it's the wrong colour, and he needs to go and exchange it. The paint they need is a forest green, the paint they got is a bright red. Now we know who painted the word witch on the side of Justine's car. During his lunch, he stops by the police station, and once again, the captain humours him by giving him an update on everything, as he also has kids of his own, and if they went missing, he'd also want as many answers as he could get. But he reminds Archer that he's not a cop, and that this is only a courtesy. Archer goes off on a rant about why they haven't looked more into Justine. And when the captain tells him that they've extensively searched her background and interviewed her, and they've just come up with absolutely nothing, what is it that Archer sees that they don't? Archer doesn't really have an answer, he only has a feeling. We retread over the night of the big PTA meeting, and then we're watching from his perspective as he follows Justine home from the liquor store and eventually vandalises her car, before heading home himself to do more research on her through the internet. As he passes out once again in his son's Matthew's bedroom, he has a strange dream, as if someone was somehow showing him the events of that night. He sees himself in his own bed and watches as Matthew gets up at 2:17 AM from a deep sleep and begins to run and hop and skip and leave the house. He chases after him and it leads him through several backyards, but always in a straight line. Matthew finally disappears as he gets close to a house, but the house itself just looks generic. No outstanding features or colours, well except for the giant floating M16 above it, like some Call of Duty Zombies gun pickup marker, even flashing the numbers 217 on the ammo counter. What? He then enters the house and it's his house again, and he heads back upstairs following the sound of the little footsteps back to Matthew's bedroom. Matthew is laying in the bed, although heavily obscured in shadow, and Archer kneels beside it, almost bursting into tears, asking him where did he go, and that he's sorry for not being a better father, for not stopping whatever happened from happening. A car drives by outside, lighting up the room for just a moment, and what the fuck is that? As Matthew's face is lit up, it's not Matthew, it's that strange clown-looking lady just grinning at him with the fucked up rotten teeth. Archer wakes up, back in the real world, scrambling up against the wall, and just yells, "What the fuck?" And in the theatre, everyone just burst out laughing. But something with that dream stuck with him. And being a construction worker and city planner, if the kids all ran in a straight line, they must have intersected at some point, right? Time to gather some evidence. He grabs up some maps from the town and heads to some of the other parents' homes, asking if he can view their footage. Just like his son, they too ran in a straight line. Using measuring tools and flag markers, he plots the direction they ran and redraws that on the map, and manages to triangulate a kind of search area where they might have ended up, although this area still does have at least 20 to 30 homes in it. During this, we also get a quick cameo from Justin Long as one of the dads, and it almost feels out of place, but also just so normal. I mean, we never see him again in the film, but the audience in my theatre were all whispering as if they too were wondering if he was going to play some major role down the line, since he wasn't even mentioned as a cast member before the film came out. Anyway, as Archer sets off to try and canvass this new search area, he spots Justine's car, marked with a big red witch graffiti, pulling into the gas station and decides might as well get some answers from her again. He pulls in and walks right up to her to confront her, and she reacts aggressively even before he asks his first question, which is understandable given his outburst at the PTA meeting. He tries to apologise to her and give her insight on everything he learns and why he's come to ask her questions again, because they are things that just don't make sense anymore. When Justine kind of stares off past him, and then interrupts him. Out of nowhere, Mr. Andrew, eyes popping out of his face, covered in blood and running like one of those missing children, arms stretched out to the side like an airplane, charges at her and knocks her down, and he just begins choking her out. Archer tries to get him off her, and Justine narrowly escapes crawling under a car and out the other side, running into the gas station for safety. Mr. Andrew pushes himself away from Archer and begins to chase after her again. When Archer tackles him to the ground, Mr. Andrew once again tries to break free, but Archer is holding him down, so Mr. Andrew flips the tables on him and begins to try and choke Archer out. And we cut to black. Chapter 3, Paul. Once again, the film resets to a few days prior, and Donna, who's Paul's wife, is informing him she might be back in town in time to have a get-together with her parents for their anniversary. Paul, who sounds absolutely thrilled by this, tells her he'll be there and can't wait to see her, but he's gotta go. His shift is starting and he's gotta go and make his rounds. Remember the police captain? Well, that's Donna's dad. Small town, eh? Anyway, Paul hops in his cruiser and heads out for the day. Along the drive, he spots a kid trying to break into some type of factory building, and sets off his siren to try and stop him, but the kid bolts it out of there. Let the chase begin. Charging around corners with his cruiser, he eventually manages to corner him and gets out of the car and tackles him to the ground. The kid's name is James, played by Austin Abrams, who you might remember from The Walking Dead as Ron Anderson, the kid who shot Carl in the eye. Anyway, while handcuffing James, Paul reads him his rights and then proceeds to frisk him, asking him if he has anything sharp in his pockets, or that could cut him. James answers no, sir. And so Paul begins to check his pockets and gets stabbed in the hand by a frickin' syringe needle. Paul just instantly boils over in anger like a pot of noodles and punches James in the side of the head, knocking him out, before realising what he just did and the fact that there's a frickin' police dash cam on him that just witnessed the whole thing. Oh boy. Well, he quickly jumps into the car, disconnects the camera, and pulls out the first aid kit to clean and disinfect the wound, praying to himself that this kid doesn't have AIDS or something. He then goes back to James, wakes him back up, and tells him that he's gonna take the cuffs off him and let him go. The way I see it, I did you wrong and you did me wrong. Clean slate. But if I see you again, it's gonna be a different story. Got it? He says to James, and he lets him go, and then heads back to the station. And at least here he does the right thing and immediately informs the captain. Although I guess in these circumstances, given that he's dating his daughter, he gets some kind of special treatment. The captain, albeit mad about it, says that as long as the report doesn't get filed, the footage will get erased in about a month. So he better hope the kid doesn't come forward to say anything about it. But if he does, even he won't be able to stop whatever shitstorm comes after him. We get a slight recap of the events of the night he met up with Justine, including the morning after when he returned home to find Donna had returned early. And well, he didn't even have the mental ability to make an excuse up of where he had been, and so she easily puts two and two together, which obviously results in the encounter with Justine at the liquor store later that day. To top it off, the next day when he starts his shift, the captain is giving him the big stink eye. Imagine cheating on your boss's daughter, it's so stupid. And he just knows Donna's told him, and he's no longer in the good graces. And finally, as he's getting ready to make his rounds, who does he see walking from around a building and heading in the direction of the police station? James. Like a bull, he sees red and starts screaming at James and chasing after him, fucking unhinged, as he's even loading up his shotgun. We then cut to chapter 4. James's perspective. It's just a few days ago again, and he's desperately trying to scrape his meth pipe for anything to get a buzz. And well, he's completely out and completely broke. He tries hitting up his sister for cash, telling her some story that he found a job but needs money for new clothes, all while walking by a bunch of parked cars and checking if their doors are open. One of them turns out to be unlocked, and he steals a little kid's backpack. Not much of value in it, except an old iPod mini, one of those leapfrog tablets, and a cheap pair of pink headphones. However, the pawn shop won't even give him $5 for it, so now he's desperate. When he finally comes full circle to him trying to break into the factory. After being let go by Paul, he makes his way to the suburbs and begins checking for signs of houses where the families might have gone on vacation. And that's when he spots Alex's house, with the newspaper-covered windows and a full mailbox that looks like no one's been home in weeks. So of course he breaks in, climbing up the gutter drain pipe and in through the upstairs back bedroom window. Like the worst burglar on the planet, he is definitely not the stealthiest and knocks over a bunch of shit. But not a single person comes looking, so the house must be totally empty. First, he checks Alex's room, but nothing too valuable here. Instead, just strips off the pillowcase so he can pack that full of loot. He tries to get into the parents' bedroom, but that door is tightly locked. After venturing downstairs, he sneaks through the dark living room, coming across a plethora of DVDs, including a copy of Willow, which excites him. When suddenly, in the reflection of the TV, he spots the parents sitting behind him. At first, he's startled, trying to apologise to him and frantically making up excuses, but they don't move or respond in any way at all. They just stare blankly, unblinking their eyes so red and bloodshot, as if they've been awake for the entire past month, an all-seeing presence for someone to keep watch through. Since they don't seem to be a threat and James doesn't seem to be the brightest bulb, he continues looting the place, moving through the kitchen and stealing all the silverware, until he hears a noise and decides to check out the basement. This part generally made me jump a bit, as when he creeps downstairs, you see all of the children just standing there, their backs turned to the entrance, and the moment that first syllable of hello leaves James' lips, they spin around and stare straight at him. It kind of reminds me of when you get spotted in a video game and everything instantly becomes aware of where you are. Well, James is certainly smart enough to get the fuck up out of there, swiping up his loot and running back to the pawn shop. It's here where the little brain power he does have kicks in, as he spots a missing person poster on the wall, and notices that the 17 kids on there could be that huge group of kids he just saw in that basement. And guess what? There's a $50,000 reward for any information that could help find them. So he takes whatever cash the pawn shop owner is willing to dole out for the stuff he stole, gets his meth and smokes it up, and then calls a hotline about the reward. Well, they can't just take his word for it and bring him the cash. He needs to head to the police station and file something official, with no other choice to get his hands on the big money. He begins to head there, and once again, full circle, we come back to the point where Officer Paul spots him on the worst day of his life, and the chase once again begins. James flees through the woods and for a moment believes he's safe, when he hears strange whispering. While looking around, he spots something, or rather someone, who slowly rises up out of the bushes. It's that strange clown-faced woman yet again. Fuck that. James bolts, heading back to his little tent spot under some bridge, and dives into this tent. He zips that shit up and repeats over and over, he's just high, that shit wasn't real. But then someone begins to unzip this tent entrance. Grabbing a stack of dirty syringes, he gets ready for whomever is going to come in. And the moment that flaps open, he launches over to stab them, and it goes right into Paul's face. Well, now he's screwed. Paul flips the hell out, grabs James' ankles and drags him out, and then points a shotgun at him, ready to shoot this guy. James scrambles for anything to get him to stop and blurts out he knows where the kids are. This stops Paul, who at first thinks James is just messing with him, but James says he will take him there right now. So the two go on a little trip. They arrive at Alex's house, and Paul keeps James handcuffed, locked in the back of the squad car, and he approaches the house. He rings a bell, and surprisingly, someone answers, although we don't see who it is. He's invited in, and the door closes eerily behind him. Hours go by, and it's nighttime again, and James is beginning to freak out, needing another fix, when Paul emerges from the house in a kind of trance-like state. Like the Liquid Terminator, Paul just bursts into a run, rips open the back door, and starts dragging James out towards the house. We now come to Marcus Andrews' chapter. It's back on the day when Justine called him to inform him of how strange Alex's house was, trying to encourage him to make a house call. He says there isn't any warrant for one, but to ease her mind, he calls her parents and have them come in for a one-to-one. The next day, it's time for this meeting, and well, it's not Alex's parents who show up, but rather a woman named Gladys, who claimed to be his aunt. And Gladys looks like a nightmare straight out of Rugrats or something, with big frizzy orange hair, layers upon layers of caked on makeup that makes her look like a wrinkled old lady clown, and yellowing teeth that seems to be rotting out of her mouth. Disturbing appearance aside though, she's super friendly, and kind of like the "oh, I'm just a little old lady" kind of way. Mr. Andrew tries his best to be polite, but explains to her that she's technically not Alex's legal guardian, and that he's trying to keep CPS out of this, so he really needs to be able to talk to them. But she claims that they are sick, and that's why she's in town, taking care of him. Again, he insists he needs to talk to his parents. It's procedure, and he sends her on her way. Later that day, at his home, with a tray of no less than 8 hot dogs covered in mustard, Mr. Andrew and his husband are sitting down to watch some kind of reality show. When the doorbell rings, guess who's coming to dinner? It's good old Gladys, who seems completely out of breath, and begs to be let in for a glass of water. which Marcus is hesitant about. But his hubby is too trusting and a lovely guy, so of course he invites her in. They head to the kitchen and Marcus pulls out a glass before Gladys asks if he can pour the water into a large bowl instead. Okay. She claims it's a peculiar quirk of hers, and honestly at this point I didn't really know what to expect. I thought she might change into a werewolf or something and start lapping the water up with a long tongue maybe. I had no idea. No, what happens instead is she puts down her enormous purse and rifles through it to pull out a curious thorned branch of some kind, and like ribbons and stuff twisted around it. She asks if Marcus has notified the police yet or CPS, and then slices open her hand with one of the thorns and smears the blood all over the stick. Horrified, Marcus's husband grabs a towel to help stagnate the bleeding, and Marcus himself is just lost for words. She reiterates her question, but then seems satisfied by his lack of direct answer, that he indeed has not yet contacted the police about her. She then cuts off a piece of the husband's hair using her big scissors and begins wrapping it tightly around the stick, before smiling wide at Marcus and snapping the stick in half. Marcus goes into some kind of fucked up trance here, turns to his husband and starts attacking him. He knocks him to the ground, climbs on top of him, choking the life out of him, before then suddenly repeatedly smashing his face into his husband's face, breaking it open like a frickin' melon, all while Gladys is humming to herself, cleaning her wound and starting a new spell or whatever with a new stick. Remember back when Miss Lily cut off some of Justine's hair? Well, this time Gladys wraps that around this new bloody twig. And when she snaps this one in half, Marcus immediately ceases slamming his forehead into his very dead husband's face, gets up, extends his arm out to each side and runs out the house. He runs through the neighborhoods, past several different locations filled with people yelling, "What the fuck, dude?" and knocking people out the way until he makes it to the gas station, to the same moment where Justine and Archer were having their little chat. This time the scene gets extended beyond when Marcus tries to choke out Archer, after he gets kicked off but scrambles back to his feet and chases after Justine into the gas station and around the aisles. Once again, Archer tries to save the day by knocking Marcus into one of the freezers, shattering the glass, but this only temporarily slows him down, and the clerk yells for them all to get the fuck out, while she screams back at him to fucking help her. It is so absurd and insane. She runs for a car, Marcus hot on her heels, and she dives in, just in time to lock the doors behind her. She starts it up and races down the street, and Marcus just takes off running after her, doing the same T-pose. Archer stumbles out the gas station and gets in his truck, chasing after them, clocking the way that Mr. Andrew is running is just like how the kids were running when they left that night. But before he can catch up to them, as Marcus crosses an intersection, he's fully ploughed into by an SUV, exploding his head like a smashed pumpkin on a Halloween night. Justine and Archer later meet up at the hospital as they get their wounds treated, and the two come to an understanding, and he presents her with the clues he's learned so far, about the search pattern he's figured out and the similarities in the run and all that. When she sees the area he's circled on the map, it dawns on her. She knows that area and tells him that's Alex's house in the middle of it. Time for another stakeout. So if you haven't figured it out yet, Gladys is an actual witch. Now, we haven't learned her complete motive yet, but don't worry, that is coming up. But it's kind of like a cross between Hansel and Gretel and the Pied Piper. But first, we get to cut to Alex's perspective. He's a quiet kid, and he gets bullied by Matthew, often Archer's shithead of a son, but overall has a pretty nice life. His parents love him, he's close with his dad, he has a very loving mom. All is perfect, except, well, Aunt Gladys is coming tonight, and she's sick and needs people to take care of her. And, well, she's family, and family takes care of family, right? When Gladys arrives, the night we get a glimpse of some of the stuff she brings with her, including a strange spirit Halloween looking bonza tree. Very suspicious. The next morning, Alex is curious to see who she is, and he takes a peek into the bedroom she's staying in. There's tons of wigs and some of the furniture has been pushed up against the wall, and laying in bed is Gladys, but she's definitely not asleep, and staring at the door, unblinking, bold and wrinkled except for a few strands of hair that have been braided together. Alex nearly jumps out of his skin and heads to school. When school ends, unlike most days, when his dad comes to pick him up, no one shows up, and so he's forced to walk home. When he arrives, the house is quiet, and even calling out to his parents, there's no answer. He makes his way to the dining room where he spots them sitting across from one another, just staring into each other's faces like they're zombified, barely responsive to his presence. Enter Aunt Gladys, bright red wig and all. He asks what's wrong with his parents, and she exclaims they're just fine. And the kid isn't so easily deterred though. He tries to wake his dad by splashing water in his face, but nothing. And so Gladys gets upset and her voice grows stern, sending Alex to bed without supper. The next morning when Alex comes downstairs, his parents are still in the same exact spot, with Aunt Gladys sitting at the head of the table. She instructs him to sit, and in front of her she has a bowl of water as well as some twigs and all her other magical objects. She asks him to promise her that he won't tell a single living soul that she's here, or that the parents are resting the way they are. Knowing something is wrong, he tries to rebel, so Gladys shows him what will happen if he doesn't obey. She uses her stick magic, trying to force the parents to pick up a fork and start repeatedly stabbing themselves in the face. Absolutely brutal. She then drops the stick in the bowl of water and the parents immediately stop, setting their forks back down. Now, my friend says at this point the kid should have just charged the aunt and killed her. Yeah, but he's a kid. But he's like 7 to 8 years old, and this old woman is apparently magic. And so I think he's just terrified that not only could she kill him, but kill his mom and dad. I would also like to point out Carrie Christopher, who plays Alex, is awesome in this role. Like, you really believe that he's the innocent and frightened kid, but that he's also no dummy, and very observant, which will come into play later on. Anyway, point is, Gladys has all the power here, and she has a task for Alex. Yeah, terrifying for a kid to be in front of a witch. Gladys has some kind of cancer, and she's dying, and initially she thought coming here that his parents could help her get better, but it's just not enough. She needs youth. This sets off a montage of daily routine to keep the parents alive. Alex must feed them soup while Gladys prepares some kind of ritual involving her little magic tree. She then reveals the next step of her plan. She needs an object from each student in the class, something personal. She promises him that if she gets better, she will go back where she came from and everything will go back to normal. Sweet deal, right? So when Alex returns to school, he begins looking for things that his classmates have that he can take. I don't know if you can remember or even had these when you were in elementary school, but this classroom has these cubbies filled with individual baskets where the students could keep their stuff in, before getting their own lockers and whatnot. Anyway, each of these baskets has a personalised name tag that each kid has drew and coloured themselves. And so during recess, he sneaks back into the class and swipes them all up. He almost gets caught by Justine, but charms his way out of it. After all, he's always been the awkward shy kid who's often alone, so it's not totally out of the ordinary that he would seek solitude from the rest of the class. When he returns home with the name cards, Gladys mixes them up with some special herbs in a bowl and smears them all over one of those branches and does a whole ritual thing. Then at 2:17 AM, once everything is complete, she snaps a twig and all the children begin leaving their houses, gleefully running towards Alex's house and right down into the basement, lining up in rows like they're on some kind of field trip. Alex is concerned about this, as he didn't really know what she was going to do when he brought her those things, but he also studies Gladys's carefully, picking up little details here and there. It's now the day when the town realised the kids were missing, and kind of recap what Alex went through, all the interviews and whatnot. And Gladys was there every step of the way, using her zombie controlling abilities to puppet around Alex's dad, hide the kids somewhere when the police search the premises, all of that kind of stuff. Alex not only has to keep feeding his parents soup, but also the kids now. But as he does this, he begins formulating plans in his mind. At first, he thinks of taking scissors from school so that maybe he can get some of Gladys's hair and put her under a spell. But they're safety scissors that barely can cut through construction paper. When he returns home that day though, Officer Paul and James are standing like statues in the house. There are salt lines everywhere, and his parents are also stationed upstairs like some kind of royal guard in front of Gladys's bedroom door. She informs Alex that they're leaving tomorrow and to be careful not to step over the salt line. Later that night is when Archer and Justine arrive outside and park in his truck, just watching the house. The two see that a cop car is parked outside, and they kind of sit there and wonder what that means. Maybe they're here to investigate further, maybe to keep people away from harassing them. But before Justine can go and say anything about it, the door opens and Paul steps out, almost in a kind of drunken stagger, and he waves them over. Okay. That'd be a big ass note from me, but not our protagonist. Nope. They of course march their little butts right up to the house and go inside. Alex sees this from his bedroom window and thinks, now is my chance. As Justine spots Paul across the room, he once again waves her over, and she steps over a salt line which instantly triggers both James and Paul to come running at them. While Paul is choking the fuck out of Justine, Archer is repeatedly, and I mean at least 7 to 8 times, knocking James out with punches to the face, throwing him into tables and shells, and it's actually kind of hilarious, but he keeps getting up. Meanwhile, Alex steps over the salt line upstairs and his parents spring into a murderous rage mode, and he runs back into his room, locking the door behind him. Shit is about to get real. Eventually, Justine is able to get the gun from Paul's holster and blows his effing brains out, and then saves Archer's life by blowing off the top of James's head as well, causing them to fall down the basement steps. That's when Archer spots them, all the missing kids. He frantically begins searching for his son, but it's dark down here, and just when he thinks he knows which one is Matthew, surprise, it's Gladys, and she snatches his necklace from him. Upstairs, Alex is fleeing from one room to another, locking doors behind him, as his parents aggressively breaks through each one, ready to tear him apart. We then cut back to Justine as Archer walks up to her and then suddenly puts her in a stranglehold. Fleeing into the bathroom after scooping up some of Gladys's things, Alex puts all the pieces out needed to do a ritual. He dips it into the bowl with all this kind of kids' card stuff and pricks his fingers, smears his blood, and then wraps Gladys's hair around the stick, and snaps it. Gladys turns towards the basement and cries out, "Oh no," before the entire horde of kids comes running up the stairs and chasing after her. She runs desperately through several yards and houses, but the kids are like that rage infected from 28 Days franchise and nothing stops them. They smash through the windows and door screens, all while people in the neighborhood stop to watch this crazy old lady running for her life being chased by a horde of kids. It is both absolutely hilarious and terrifying. It was so funny. The kids eventually catch up to her and, like a piece of fried dough between friends, tear her apart. The moment she dies, the curse or control or whatever she had on the parents and Archer immediately ceases, and the kids all just kind of stop. Now, I don't recall seeing Alex drop the stick into the water bowl to cleanse it, which would remove whatever from the kids, and while we do get an epilogue where it's said that some of the kids returned back to normal and even started speaking again, I wonder if Alex has permanent control over them. His parents unfortunately aren't so lucky. From being like sleep deprived in that weird zombified state for over a month, their brains have been broken, and now they spend the rest of their days at a mental hospital being fed soup. Alex ends up moving to a new town and lives with a different arm, this one apparently a nice lady. Archer is reunited with his son, and well, that's it folk. That's the end. What a ride. Again, I had my assumptions before seeing this film of where it might go, with my first thoughts being some kind of monster to maybe some kind of government experiment. And then about halfway through the film, I started thinking either something demonic, cult stuff, or it was in fact witchcraft. But to see how it actually played out was very rewarding. Now, there was some discussion amongst us to what her full plan was. Some believe that she needed to keep them as zombies in order to continuously leech their life force or something. While I personally think that there was more to the ritual, and she got caught up in trying to make sure that they had time to do it. And that's where it all started to kind of fall apart. She figured they would have to leave town and try again somewhere else. I mean, she fooled the police and the school, but then James became a problem when he stumbled upon the kids, and Archer was just too good at his investigation. And of course, Justine just couldn't let go and needed answers of her own, while also wanting to desperately reach out to Alex, the only other person who didn't go missing from the class. With too many constant variables, I think Gladys was like, if I can't get rid of them, best to just start over. As for what the full ritual entailed, I don't know. Maybe she needed to suck out their souls sleepwalker style, or eat them like other witches do in most fairy tales. With Gladys being torn to pieces in the end, I guess we'll never find out. I want to thank you all for checking out the video. What did you think of the film? Please let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel. And ring that bell icon to stay up to date with all our latest releases. I have been your host Sarah, and thank you for being with me today. Have a beautiful day and take care. Unit fur all over me.